Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're visiting with us. Hi, my name is Robin Blank Muscari. I'm here to welcome you to 30 Minutes of Wisdom. We get together twice a month to support your personal and professional development with wonderful thought leaders. So this morning, this afternoon, this evening, whenever you're watching, I get to introduce a very special man that's new in my life. He was introduced to me by one of our leaders, John Ward, and I'm very excited about this call today because it is so perfect for our business and what so many of us are going through. Excuse me for I thought I cleared my throat before we started. So we're going to talk, Richard's going to talk about getting beyond smallness. And I think for a lot of us, we are in a prime situation to expand beyond where we have ever been. So Richard is the perfect guest today. He is a transformational coach, a unity minister, and over the last 30 years, he's been a spiritual teacher and leader to thousands of individuals. He's worked and studied with the greatest of the spiritual masters of our time. And as a speaker, he's powerful, dynamic, humorous, and a big teddy bear is what I hear. Well, getting to the heart of the matter and the soul of his audience. He teaches people to expand their capacity to live and love more authentically. And he teaches a process he calls expansion. How perfect is that? It allows one to become greater than the events in their life. Well, isn't that perfect timing for what's going on right now? And he helps people release their potential and live a more soulful, satisfying life. And what I've heard about you, Richard, from our mutual friend John, is you've literally changed his life because you've created the space for him to be more of who he is by expressing more of what's in there. So I want to welcome you, Richard
Thank
Rogers.
you, thank you, Rob. Thank you much, Robin, for inviting me. I am so excited. Thanks, John, for introducing us, and it's
Yes.
just been a great connection that you and I have had.
I love it. I love it. And your topic, like I said, is so important because we're sitting on a unique situation where many of us are going to grow in ways that we've never grown before. So your work is so perfect.
Right?
So
It is. This is what I do.
I love it. It's time for us to get beyond smallness. I love it. So should we get started?
I'm ready.
Okay. So Richard, with all your years of experience as a minister and transformational coach, what would you say is the most important thing that allows some people to succeed and some not?
Well, there's a moment in every opportunity, right? And in that moment, you're either going to expand into it or you're going to contract into fear. Right? And most of us have had that moment where we knew life was offering us this golden opportunity to expand and to be more than we thought we could be, have an opportunity that we could say yes to and dive into. And our fear just gets the best of us, and we contract, and that moment passes and we miss it. Right? And I can think of all the times in my life where the universe has invited me to expand into a possibility, and it was just too big for me. It was more than I could imagine. And I can think of all the times in those times when I've just expanded beyond it, because the soul only does two things: it either expands or it contracts. And what I teach people how to do is how to expand so that they can be bigger than their goals, bigger than the moment, bigger than their emotions, bigger than their thoughts, so that they really can live an expanded version of themselves. And so what I find is people that can expand succeed. People that live in contraction and fear tend to miss moments, and their life never really changes very much.
Well, you take me back to one of my mentors early on in my career when I worked with Michael Gerber. He wrote the book, The E-Myth. And his wife said to me, every day I wake up with fear, but I make a choice. Am I going to contract or am I going to expand and do, because I'm doing something I've never done before. So that has sat with me for many, many, many years. And here you are. How perfect is that? And in our business, we all have that opportunity because as Jim Rohn, our business philosopher, says, work twice as hard on yourself as you do your business because you are your business. So in our business, we are our business as entrepreneurs. So what, let's dig in a little bit deeper. So, what are some of the specific things that kind of cause us to either expand or contract?
Well, first, I want everybody just to breathe for a minute. And I want you to really just feel yourself expanding and then contracting, right? And I want you to get a real sense that you are more than just a physical being, right? That you are energy and that we have this capacity to expand or contract in a moment, right? We can expand into a possibility, we contract. So what are some of the things that just naturally cause us to expand? Love, joy, excitement, all those things just naturally tend to cause an expansion within us. We get into things like fear, conflict, disappointment, anger, and the biggest one is shame, right? Those
Mm,
are the things that cause us to contract down. Now, one of the things that's interesting when I work with people is most people just assume that in shame or in fear or in chaos, you have to contract, but you actually don't, right? That as you expand, you can actually make, like, if there's a bad situation, maybe something you made a mistake or you're embarrassed that you made a mistake, and then you can track down around it. Or if you're in fear and then you can track down around it, there actually creates no room for a solution.
mm.
There's no room for a greater level of good. So contraction never makes sense. Like most of us have believed that in the presence of a fearful situation, if I get smaller, I'm going to be safer. But the reality is that every time we get smaller, there's not enough room for a new solution. There's not enough room for a new possibility. There's not enough room for all the good that we could really live in that moment. And in my experience, I've literally worked with thousands of individuals, right? And in my experience, when we're in contraction, either for shame or fear, we are playing such a small game that it doesn't allow us room to be fully blessed. And I really want people to be fully blessed in their life. And
Mm.
expansion is the way. And you can actually train yourself in the presence of shame or fear or conflict. You can actually train yourself to expand to be more than that moment so that you can truly be wildly blessed.
Well, oh my goodness. So this is so powerful to just raise the awareness of expansion and contraction when those things happen in our life. So let's say I'm feeling shame, I'm feeling contraction coming on. What can I do to just make that transform into expansion?
But so the first thing that we have to really begin to do is to become conscious. That most of us, when we go into shame or fear, we go unconscious. We want to pull the blankets over our heads. We don't want to know what's
Hide,
happening.
hide.
Right, right. We want to just go unconscious. We don't want to feel what we're feeling. We just want to get as small as we can get and hope that the lion doesn't eat us. Right,
Oh. Hmm.
right. And we've all had those moments where we were so in fear, so ashamed of something that happened. We just wanted to just become invisible, right? So then we contract down to this little spot. And what we have to do is actually begin to notice when we're contracting, when we're in shame, when we're in fear. And the simplest way to do this is just to begin to breathe deep, to get back in our bodies. And as we begin to breathe deep, it allows for an expansion to begin to happen. And we notice that we get to make a conscious choice. Do I want to be smaller in this situation? Or do I really want to become greater than this moment? And when we choose to become greater than the moment, then that's when the good stuff starts happening.
Okay, so you talked about getting into our body. I Some people know what that means, but not everybody. So could you dig a little deeper into that one? What does that mean to get into your body?
Most of us spend most of our time in our heads, right? We're thinking, we're just processing life from an intellectual place. And what happens is that we get so heady that we forget that everything has to process through our body. So one of the things I teach people is you got to wiggle down, man. You got to wiggle down into And wiggle all the way down to your hips, man. Your hips are where the power is, right? The center is, right? So when you begin to wiggle down in your body and out of your head, so sometimes I have people just put on great music and make themselves just wiggle, make themselves dance, right? To get down in your hips, to get down in your body, and to realize that we really have to reclaim where we're living from. When I learned how to snow ski, I'm a big guy. I'm 6'4", and when I learned how to snow ski, I realized that I really didn't know where my center of gravity was. Right? My
Mm.
center of gravity is really way down at my hips. And if you're going to snow ski, you have to really be conscious that if you're skiing from your head, you're going to fall. You're going to fall over, right? If you're snow skiing from down in your hips, down where your center of gravity is, that's where all the good stuff happens, where you can actually move your body, right? And so getting down in your body is moving out of your head, even moving out of your emotions, moving back into your hips, moving back to your center, so that you can begin to expand from your center, from your core. Even very spiritual people get real heady. Like they think all these wonderful spiritual thoughts, and yet the reality is if we're not fully connected to ourselves, if we're not connected to our core, if we're not connected to our body, we really miss out on so much of life,
Oh my goodness. So many of us sit so much.
right?
And one of my good friends got me into the habit, and I need to redo it. But every hour, music would go off on my phone, and it would get me up dancing every hour.
A dance break. Everybody needs a dance break,
I
right?
know it really worked, except I had it on the hour, which is when many appointments start. So I need to
Right.
shift it to
You-
15 after and warn people that, okay, this is going to happen in a few minutes, and we're all going to stop and we're going to all get up and dance.
or even like a lot of my calls go to 10 till or 5 till, right? And so if I can do the last 5 minutes, my watch now is programmed to beep at 5 minutes to the
There
hour.
you-
And in 5 minutes to the hour, I have to get up and move my body, right? Because, we all need dance breaks.
I love it. So maybe we should have a dance party on one of our 30 minutes of wisdom.
We should just great music and have a dance party,
I did a seminar online, and it was fabulous that we were all in our own homes, but we were all dancing together. So I think you
right?
gave me some ideas for our team.
Okay,
Okay,
good deal.
so let's expand some further. So
Okay.
when you're talking about a good situation in your life to make it even better, or expand a negative situation to make it better, how does the distinction between those work? What do we do there? How do we
Sometimes
make something? Go
right?
ahead.
Sometimes people will say to me, this goal is so much bigger than I am, right? And sometimes it can feel like that what we want to create in our life is so much bigger than we are. But the reality is, if we're going to create anything in our life, we actually have to expand our soul to be bigger than that. So, whatever big goal or dream or desire you have, it's with the understanding that your soul actually has to become bigger than the goal, bigger than the desire, or you can never hold it. We see a lot of people that have attained a level of success in their life. Maybe it's an athlete or a politician or whatever. And then they've imploded their life. They've made some bad choices and they simply have imploded their life. And what happens is if we don't expand ourselves to be bigger than the life that we're living, we will find creative ways to implode it and make our life smaller. So you really can't have a life that's bigger than you are and on a long-term basis. And so if you feel like your life is bigger than you are, then we really need to expand to be able to hold that. And it's also in a negative situation. In a negative situation where we expand, it just allows creativity, it allows new solutions, it allows problem solving. And the worst thing that can happen is in a negative situation to contract around the negative situation so much so that it doesn't allow for a solution. It doesn't allow us to learn from it, to grow from it, to transform it. So in every situation, as you become bigger, the positive ones and the negative ones, it just allows for more growth, more good, more blessings, more opportunities. It really just is, it's a requirement of what's next.
So when we're in contraction, there's no space for creativity, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, there's no space to take a breath. There's no space for a new solution. Our mindset tends to follow that way of experiencing. So when we're in contraction, we can't even entertain new ideas. We actually go unconscious. It really requires expansion for us just to entertain new ideas. I believe that the universe is always trying to whisper greater possibilities in our ear.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. Can I do a Richard quote on that?
Absolutely.
I'm
Um,
taking notes.
Okay, great. So I believe that the universe is always trying to whisper greater possibilities, greater good in our ear. And when we're contracted, we simply don't hear the possibilities. We don't hear the opportunities knocking at the door of our soul. And so living from an expanded place every day just becomes a new possibility. And what I find as I'm driving around and doing what I do, as I practice expanding, new ideas just instantly begin to drop in because I'm operating from a bigger place within myself. Like if I want to live a bigger life, I have to keep opening the possibilities first within myself for those new ideas that the solutions in our life. Like sometimes people come to me and say, Richard, I feel stuck. I don't see the solution to this problem. And it's like the solution is always available, but we have to be able to expand big enough to hold the new possibility, to hold the new insight, to hold the next level of good. And I can't uh, I can't speak this too often to people that if you feel stuck in your life, it is an expansion problem. That
Yeah.
you cannot create the next level of your life from a contracted place. If you want a greater love, if you want a greater job, if you want a greater opportunity, you want greater prosperity, greater health, it is an expansion problem.
Okay, so let's take that to the current reality of what people are dealing with. There's a lot of contraction in the world going on. There's a lot of divisiveness between people of I think we all want the same thing, but we see it differently. So you talked about, you talked about breathing deeper, getting in your body, but you also mentioned expanding your soul to be bigger. I'd love you to tell me more about what that means because I want to better understand. How does our soul get bigger?
Okay, so so this is my theological, my spiritual understanding. You ready
All
for this?
right, go for
Because
it.
so here it is, right? So I believe that we're all created in the image and likeness of God, right? And that we have been given this soul, this container, this vessel, if you will, that's not that it's alive. Our soul is alive. It's a free flowing, energetic experience. And every soul gets to hold as much good, as much God as the vessel that they create, right? And your soul, that's all it ever does is expand or contract, expand or contract. And the more it expands, the more God it can hold, the more good it can hold, the more possibilities it can hold. So, and that's really, as a spiritual being, that's your only job. Your only job is to expand your soul so that God can fill you up. And the more we expand, the more blessed we become. And the blessing isn't just material things, it's everything. It's love, it's joy, it's peace, it's power, it's aliveness. And right now in the world, what we see is people contracting around political and ideology and concepts and beliefs. And it doesn't allow us to expand enough to include other beliefs or other ideas or other groups. And so we're contracted right now in so many ways around one thought pattern, around one belief system. And the idea over and over again is I want to be bigger than that. I want to be bigger than one way of thinking or one group or one political system. We actually want to expand to embrace a greater reality. And the more that we do that, the more we can hold God. Because God's infinite, right? And if we're going to hold more good, if we're going to hold more God, we have to expand out in all directions to do that.
That's so wonderful because I see so many people that are so attached to their way is the way. And from my background, I mean, I learn best when I listen to people that see it differently. It's like, help me understand, why do you believe that? What's that? So I like to expose myself to things that are outside of my belief to see if maybe I can expand and,
Right.
and yeah.
But that is expansion, right? As soon as you're curious, you can't be curious without expansion,
Ah, that's a
right?
good one.
Curious is expansion. Because the moment you get curious about anything, you're really open to holding a new idea, a new concept, a new possibility. So curiosity requires expansion. When
That
you say, how does this work? Or how can I be blessed? Or how could I do this? The moment you move into curiosity, you are in expansion.
Love it. And as an entrepreneur and a business person, it's one of the most powerful things we can possibly be is curious, you know?
Right. Because you have to be curious about how to create a better life. If you're just going to live the same year, the same 10 years over and over again, those aren't the people that you work with. The people that are coming to you are people that are curious about living a better life and they want to know how to do that. That curiosity creates an expansion, right? And then
Beautiful.
as we support them in moving beyond their fear of expansion, they can really create any life that they want.
I love it. I love it. So I learned many years ago about the power of questions, that living in questions helps us expand also. So are there any particular questions that you, Richard, live in for yourself to keep yourself in an expanded place?
Well, one of my guiding principles
Uh-huh.
is how do I live in joy today,
Beautiful.
right? And I'm committed to living a life of joy. And sometimes they think joy is just about adding things. Like if I get this job or this promotion or this thing, then I'm going to be in joy. But joy is really about subtracting. What thought, what belief, what judgment would I have to let go of today to be in joy?
Mm,
And so for me, expansion is not only just adding, but it's also subtracting those things that aren't helpful. That the moment notice that I'm in judgment, I realize that I'm automatically in contraction. The more I'm just curious, then the walls start becoming greater and greater and greater.
beautiful. Beautiful. So you're being a transformational coach and a minister, you're dealing with people stuff all day long, all the time. So you really have an understanding of how people work. Could you share that with the rest of us so we can understand better?
How people work? Well, everybody wants their desires.
Hmm.
For their family, for themselves, for their world, everybody wants their desires. The key is to create a mental, emotional, and I would say spiritual map that allows us to have it. Because when we don't believe that we can have what we long for, depression or anxiety is an appropriate response.
Mm,
We have so many people right now in our world that are depressed and anxious. I mean, the numbers are staggering. And especially with all that's going on in the world today, with the economy, with COVID, with all that, we have so many people that are anxious because they don't believe that they can have their desires. You
mhm.
What I believe is that as we open a space, as we expand the space to be big enough for our desires, that we can truly just move into higher and higher levels of good.
That is so helpful for right now because some people have taken this situation and blossomed with it and
Amen. Yep.
and transformed. I mean, I know several people that have been in the event business and they just reinvented themselves
Right.
and
Right.
they're thriving. And other people are using the excuse to be victim and contract, like you
Right.
said.
Right.
So if
That's it.
like we've got this opportunity, I think I heard years ago, architects with the greatest limitations become their most creative self.
Right. Because you have to. It's like give an architect a small plot of land and say, I want this kind of a property or this kind of a house. And they have to be their most creative because the old designs don't work.
Right, right. They've got an opportunity here. So, why don't you talk a little bit about how you work with people? Because we have an opportunity. There may be some people interested in, some of your coaching, Richard. How do you work with people, and how can they reach you?
Well, I just put my phone number on the chat. It's
Oh, great.
602-708-6685.
Perfect.
And what I'd like to offer everybody who's listening is 4 coaching sessions. I do what I call power sessions. They're half an hour long, um, because I want to stay really just focused on moving them forward in the greatest possible way. So I offer people a half an hour coaching session. It's usually $85. But for the people that are listening today, they can get 4 sessions for $299. So they're going to save $40 if they do that. Because what I find is that sometimes we don't see the places where we're contracted. We're so used to contracting in those places that we sometimes need somebody outside of ourselves to really look, and so that we get to see our contractions so that we can expand beyond that. So I'd like to offer people, and 4 sessions is enough to really get into it and see how it works. 4 sessions, half an hour each, $299, and they're going to save $40.
Beautiful, beautiful. And do you do courses also?
I do. I just filled up my next expansion group. I do small expansion groups, and they're very popular. And usually I invite people that are doing coaching with me to become a part of an expansion group. There are small groups of 12 people who are doing that. And right now, I've got one starting next week, and it is literally already full, or I would have shared that with your
Okay.
listeners as well. But if they want to go to Richard D. Rogers, ROGERS.com, and then get on my Tuesday morning meditation, get on my email list. And I do a 10-minute meditation every Tuesday that is absolutely free. And they can get on the list for that as well. And I'll put my email address down as well.
Oh, good. And do you do those transformation sessions often? I mean,
I do. I run them pretty much continually.
okay. And how long are they?
They're 8 weeks.
8 weeks.
They are $495 for the 8 weeks, and
Great.
it's a small group of people who are really committed to expanding their life, and their expansion groups, and they're just that they always sell out. So
Well, it's
that'd be
because of
great.
you. And what John told me about you is, he looked at the highlights of his life. Having his children was a highlight of his life, and you being in a men's group with you was a highlight of his life because you create this safe place for people to open, and that has made a huge difference in his life.
I love my guys. I just love my guys. I think that, I just have a whole lot of compassion for what guys are going through right now. And so I just love my guys.
Well, that's so beautiful. And I didn't tell you, but two of our sons lead men's groups, and
See?
they're both getting counseling degrees, masters in counseling, so they can continue doing the deeper work. So,
See, that's
it
fabulous. I think, I think right now, men need a little support with all the changes that are going on in the
yeah,
world. And
yeah.
when you can come right in and just do that, it's fabulous stuff.
Well, any other final comments before we stop our recording? And if you're willing, we can stay on a few minutes for some Q&A if people have questions.
Love to stand for a little Q&A. My
Okay.
my final thing is just take a deep breath right here, right now, and feel your entire being expanding to a new level of good.
Mhm.
Just feel all that you are, just stretching out from your hips, from your waist, from your center, from your tummy, from your head, from your heart, just expanding out to embrace the next highest level of good in your life. And we just give thanks for that right here, right now. And so it is.
I love it. Next level of good. That's so beautiful. Thank you, Richard. What a gift you are, and so timely for what we're all going through in the world and in our business. And I'm just so grateful that John introduced us. Thank you for
Yeah, it's fabulous. Robin, you're the best. Thank you so much. And
okay.
just, I'm very honored to be on with all of you.
Great. So stand by for just a minute. We'll conclude our recording right